Hello, are we ready? Okay, so today we are going to just do the stem. We're using 2 different stitches and then we're gonna call it a day. So let's do it. Okay, first things first. If you've never used embroidery thread before, you want to pull your thread out from the number end. If you pull it from up here, you'll get tangles, so don't do that. So down here, find your end with the number and go from there. The general rule of thumb is to use about the length of your arm from your fingertips to the end of your arm or shoulder or whatever. This is tangled. Hold on. My kids were in my threads the other day, and I think this one got the brunt of it. So hold on while I untangle. Okay. If you're an experienced stitcher, you just use as much thread as you want. So embroidery thread comes 6-stranded. So if you can see here, you can pull these apart. We are not going to be pulling these apart today, but we will other days. So we're going to keep all 6 of these together. Threading a needle. I like to wet the end of mine with my tongue, and then I flatten it between 2 fingers. And then slide that into the needle. Sometimes it takes a couple tries, and that's okay. There we go. And then we're just gonna pull this second thread just down a little ways, and we'll stitch with our tail. So I just tie a regular knot. I know some people do like fancy little things and they wrap it around things like their needle and they make a knot, but I don't do that. So tie a little knot in your end, however you want to get that done. All right, so the first stitch we're gonna learn today is a split stitch. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start down at the bottom of our stem, right where our stem meets our pumpkin. And we're gonna go up a stitch length. So depending on how textured you want this to look is gonna determine the size of your stitches. So I'm gonna do, I don't know, this is like a regular size stitch for me. Let's see, next to my fingernail, it's about half my fingernail. It's not gonna be a big deal if it's a little bit different, so don't worry too much about it. So once you have your stitch in there, we're gonna do another stitch that's gonna be the same length. Keeping your stitches the same length is the most important part. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come up, let me zoom in a little. We're gonna come up in the middle of this stitch. So we're splitting that. And then we're gonna go down. So from here to here should be the same length as your first stitch, but you're starting it in the middle of the first stitch. Does that make sense? And then if you have any questions while I'm stitching, let me know. Hannah, couldn't download the pattern to print. Okay, send me a message. Send me a direct message with your email and I will email it to you. Okay, so then we're just gonna keep doing the same thing. So we're gonna come up halfway between this one, split that thread open, and then go down. And we're just gonna do that all the way around this stem. I usually like to start with a back stitch, but well, I wanted to get the outline done first, so this is what we're doing. So once we get around this, we will do a different stitch in the middle of this. But first, we're gonna outline. And you can kind of see with that variegated thread, it'll start to like change colors as we work through our stitches. So a couple of things. Make sure that you're pulling your stitches snug, like from the back. You want to make sure that those are pulled snug so that you don't have like loose thread. And then for this last one, we're just going to go down in this same hole that our other one ended in, but we want to split it so that it keeps that same texture. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to go and stitch, do a back stitch, and then we're going to come up in the middle. And end that. Whoops. That one was a smaller stitch, so I'm not gonna do a second one in it. I'm not gonna split it. Should you be piercing the same prior hole? No. Like every other one will pierce the same hole. So like this first stitch was here to here, and then the second stitch is here to the middle of the next one, and then this third one will start in that same hole or really close to it. But no, you don't, with this stitch, you don't need to worry about being in the same hole. On the corners, I am using the same hole. Oh, sorry, a little bit off camera there. I am using the same hole at the corner just to keep that line like nice and crisp. But like when you're working with the split stitch, no, you don't need to be worrying about using the same hole. Does that make sense? So I like using a split stitch. Oops, sorry. My thread got a little out of control. I like using a split stitch for outlines or lettering. If you do smaller stitches, if you're doing like a cursive lettering, it makes nice curved lines. You're welcome. And then another thing I've learned, if you have a stitch that's kind of like poking up a little bit, pull this backwards. So like if you were stitching from here to here, you'd pull it this way, and now I'm going down, so I'm pulling it like this, like up, will help get your stitches a little bit like cleaner if you're having issues with that. Because like if you pull it down, then you're just gonna like pull it more into that, but up, if you pull it up, it kind of softens it a little. All right, last one. Okay. So there is the outline of our stem. These ones got a little bit bigger. You can kind of see like right here, these ones got a little bit bigger like compared to these ones. So try hard to keep your stitches like as even as possible. If they're not, it's not gonna be the end of the world, but that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is these lines up the center. So this one we're gonna do a stem stitch. So it's another great one for lines. And it's kind of a similar concept. So we're gonna come up at the bottom. We're gonna keep our thread over to the side as we make our stitch. And we're not gonna pull it all the way tight yet. So we're gonna keep this out to the side. It doesn't matter what side. I usually like to keep the curve on the outside of the loop of my thread on the outside of the curve. So like this kind of curves like this. So I'm gonna keep my thread on this side. So when I do this one over here, I'll keep my thread over on this side. Hey, Whitney. Okay, so we have our little loop over here. We're gonna come up in the middle of our stitch and then we're gonna pull it tight. So this is kind of makes like a braided look. So then we're gonna do the same thing from this stitch to this stitch. How big that is, we're gonna go from here to here. And then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna keep our loop over here and come up in this same stitch. And then we're gonna pull that. Keep our little loop on this side. We're gonna come up in this same hole on this one. If it's not right in the exact same hole, it gets covered up, so it's not like a big deal. Okay, pull that snug. Keep working our way up. The smaller the stitches, the tighter your like braiding will be, or like this rope. You see how it twists, or looks like it twists? So the bigger the stitch, the looser that will be. So on this next one, I'm gonna do, I'll do it a little tighter so you can see kind of that different look. Okay, and then on this last one, we're gonna come up in the center, and then I'm gonna go down on the other side of this. So I'm not gonna use the same hole, I'm just gonna go over a little bit, like that, and go down, because that'll kind of keep that braided, like roped look. And there we go. So with these, you can start at the top or the bottom. Because my needle's already up here, I'm just gonna start up here and work my way back down. Except this time I'm gonna do my stitches just a little smaller. So another thing is, depending on how many threads you're using. So if you're using less threads, if you're using like 3 strands instead of 6 strands, you can make this like less chunky. But I kind of like a lot of texture and stuff, so I like 6 strands most of the time. Oh, that one got a little bit big on me. I forgot what I was doing. That's like my normal size. I have to really pay attention if I'm making something smaller. And then I'm doing the same thing with this as I was with the split stitch. If you pull this to where you were stitching, so I'm pulling it up towards where I've already stitched, it tends to lay a little bit more flat. Rather than if I was pulling it this way, it's like pulling against where it wants to go, so. Does anyone have any questions while we work on this? Today's video is going to be a lot shorter than some of these other days. Okay. So then I'm just going to go down just on the other side of that. Okay. So now do you see like the two, like if this one's longer stitches and this one's shorter stitches? It's easier to see in person, but this is a lot more twisted and it lays a little bit flatter than like this one is raised up and kind of a little bit more flimsy. All right, last one, I'm just gonna go up the middle. And these ones are gonna be a little bit bigger stitches because I do better with them. If you're doing a straight line, it doesn't matter what side your loop is on. I tend to pull to the left because I'm right-handed, so it just works to have my left hand hold this to the side rather than trying to put it on the other side. So I'm only going to do 3 stripes up this, but if you want to fill this in, you could keep filling this in with just more stitches. Just keep filling it in until it's full. Like start, I'll show you when I get to the top, but you could just keep going. It'll take a little bit of time, but it would look really fun. And then when I have a stitch like this and I want them connected, I'll kind of move this out of the way and put my needle down like under it so that it'll like hide where I'm ending. Okay. All right, friends. Okay, so if you wanted to keep going, you could come over here and do another one down, come do another one up, and then end it like right here where those two are touching. And then these ones are a little bit further apart. You could probably do, like come up here and do another one, like just do one in between all of those. So you could totally fill that in more. You could do some split stitch in there as well, kind of give it some different textures. Or just leave it. I'm gonna leave mine open because this bottom part will be, these parts will be like open, there will be negative space. So I like the negative space up here, but if you don't, then go ahead and fill that in. So that is it for me today. We're really short today, but we will be busier tomorrow. So tomorrow we're gonna work on the outline of our pumpkin. So we're gonna be using the orange thread. I don't remember what number it is. I don't have it over here. So get ready for that tomorrow, same time at 12:30. And let me know if you have any questions. I'm pretty active on Instagram, especially when I'm doing a stitch along. So let me know if you have questions and I can help you along the way. Thanks. Bye, guys.